She's done everything else tonight. The captain, Justine MULES-ROBINSON. It's only fair that she'll have the last kick of the game and a chance to kick number 2. Has engineered an enormous victory tonight for Port Adelaide. And they cap it off in the right way possible. The finals dream lives on for Port Adelaide. They win by 35 points.
Alrighty, good evening, hello, welcome to the CREEDCAST on a very, very good week to be doing this. A massive win for your Port Adelaide women on Friday night footy down in Alberton. Does it get better than that? I don't think so. And it does it even better when the Port Adelaide put on what I think is one of our best performances in our AFLW history, if not the best. We'll get into all of that on this episode of the podcast. It of course, was 15-4. 94 Port Adelaide to 8-11-59 Hawthorn. A thoroughly dominating win from wire to wire, really. I'm really excited tonight, though, because Jamie, who we all know has been on Podcast Paternity Leave, is back after a few weeks off. He's fit and healthy and raring to get back into it. Couldn't think of a better game for him to get back into it. And it's only appropriate that we play him some intro music as he makes his grand entrance back into this podcast. Me higher.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show, mate.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you back. I know I've been the podcast has been great, mainly while you've been gone, with the fact that you've been popping your thoughts in still. But it is wonderful to have you back to chat about it on air, to bounce things off of each other. And I mean, what a result to bring you back into a game that has just filled us with so much joy about where this Port Adelaide Football Club is going. Maybe not this year, but that remains to be seen, but just for the future.
Yeah, look, it was hard to stay away for as long as I did, although thoroughly enjoyed it. Parenthood the second time around is just as fulfilling for those playing at home. But what a performance when, as I think it was discussed in commentary, no one foresaw what was about to unfold on Friday night, and just to put in that type of performance was quite profound and obviously pleasing to the hilt. So the itch just got even itchier, and I needed to scratch it, and here I am. I'm back on the pod, although as we were just discussing pre-recording, it was a little bit of fun to drop my thoughts into a voice note and hear them back, I guess, the next day, listening to your thoughts surrounding them. And also hearing you forecast what you thought I was going to talk about or the way things would go, and then me in my voice note guessing what you would have or will be talking about as well. So I guess we know each other fairly well, but it was fun. Like I said to you, it was like I was a bit of a foreign correspondent, a little bit, recording live from my rumpus room out the back instead of my pod cave.
Yeah.
Echoey pod cave at that.
Like Brick Tamlin, pan to watch. I think I've brought that up a lot in this podcast. It's a random pull that my brain does. I mean, first of all, before we get into it too much, I mean, you can talk about it now. Just let the people know how you've been doing, how the family's doing. I'm sure a lot of people have been quite happy for you as well. But now that you're back on live, how's everyone doing? I know I just saw a couple of them and met little Joachim on the pre-recording just now, which is great to see how he looks very, very comfortable in your home there.
Yeah, Joachim Noah, ex-Chicago Bull, for those needing a little help with that reference. Little Noah, he's doing really great. Family's doing great. My little girl Peyton, who I've brought up 18 times on the podcast, she's over the moon. She's obsessed with him, and Lucy is doing fantastically well herself. Leading up to obviously welcoming Noah into the world, there was a little self-reflection of whether complacency could come into it, but I think you just built for it a bit better the second time around. So everything's going well. Had the fortune of actually welcoming him into our own home this time
Hmm.
around, which will be nice to progress our family moving forward. Yeah, being able to build something for the four of us from this point on.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really wonderful. And I think I said it a few times while you're off. Like, it's just like to take that time with your family. Like, you don't, once you get back into work, like everyone knows, like, time with family can be very, very precious. And you think about it a lot throughout the years when you get busy and stuff. You look back on those times. So the fact that you've been able to take that with your family, and I know you're such a good family man anyway, that you'll continue to have those good times, but you'll remember this time specifically quite well as well. So, very, very
Yeah,
glad you're
absolutely.
able to take that time.
Yeah. And if I can recommend anything to whether it be first time, second time, fifth time parents, just take a month off. Oh, sorry, fathers, that is.
Mhm.
Um, take a month off because I did with Peyton, I didn't with Noah, and it was about 2 days in, and on my maybe second or third movie watch for the paternity leave. No, no. Yeah, it was a few days in, and I immediately knew that 2 weeks was not going to be long enough. So,
Mhm.
um, but society and
Yeah.
fathers, whatnot, got the better of me when I organised my paternity leave back few a few months ago. So
Mhm.
that's my one recommendation. Apart from that, everything's going swimmingly. I actually took more podcast paternity leave than I did actual paternity leave. So, yeah, uh, hence really excited to jump back on and discuss this game.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, your voice notes were quite extensive at times as well. I think particularly on the Patreon a couple of weeks ago, one of them was 22 or 23 minutes long. So you were definitely
Yeah.
at work still. It definitely worked.
Oh, yeah. Got right into my work vis-a-vis Zach Butters in the trade period.
Yeah. Mitch Cleary got a
Yeah.
lot more strays than I was expecting that week.
He did, and I
Deservedly
think
so.
with good reason. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's copping them from the CREEDCAST. He's copping them from Tom Rockcliffe. He's copping them from everywhere. But
From
yeah,
Clary.
yeah, Clary, yeah. We won't say too much more. Go sign up for the Patreon and go back and listen to a couple of weeks ago. You'll find all that fun. But yeah, no, I'm really, really glad you're back for this one. First of all, I know you weren't able to watch it live, but you've caught a replay. So it's kind of, we've got two. I watched a replay today myself, but I was down there live. So we've kind of got two different angles into the game, which I always like too, because you're watching live at the ground versus replay watching and whatnot gives you different ways in to how you feel about it at the time. But you've watched the replay, and I mean, we can just start with the general idea of what our best win is as an AFLW club. How do you feel about that, having watched that replay? Because I think I can't think of a more comprehensive, complete example of a game, considering the opponent like this year as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I would have said before Friday night that the last time we played Hawthorn would arguably be one of our best
Hmm.
games in the AFLW. And that's kind of for a completely different reason, like overcoming adversity and overrunning them in the last quarter in that semi-final. But obviously, this was a lot different. Um, the pressure was on early. Uh, things were clicking from the
Hmm.
get-go. And like you've just mentioned, it was a more complete performance across 4 quarters. The watching it live versus watching purely a replay, wholly and so like by and large, sorry, I would have loved to have watched it live to get those immediate reactions and bursts
Hmm.
of dopamine, particularly when a lot of this is unexpected. However, I'm grateful that I got to watch the third quarter on replay because I can imagine there would have been a lot of frustrated people either there or at home
Hmm.
watching our lead dissipate. But I think that's also what makes this win so much better and puts it up into that echelon or on the podium of best AFLW wins is that we were challenged. It got too close for comfort, but we responded and we
Hmm.
ran away with it in the end, which is again a trend that we're not used to, or we've done the opposite
Hmm.
more often than we'd like to this season. So there's a few aspects there ultimately which suggest that I think we can comfortably say that it is our best performance. That Melbourne performance earlier in the year should get a lot of credit. But the thing is that we nearly got overrun in that game, whereas we got challenged in the third quarter here, to reiterate that, and we responded, and we responded famously.
Yeah. I think that's where I've been doing the kind of exercise in my head since Friday night. Like I was driving home, driving down the expressway, looking at the lights hitting the salt flats and all that, feeling like I was in a Michael Mann movie. Like I always love that drive home. Like for those listening, I drive back from Alberton to the Barossa, so I kind of go along the Northern Expressway and past the salt pans and all that stuff. So like I was thinking, I was already doing the exercise in my head because I was so impressed with it, and I was already making the counter arguments to myself, because the immediate response is, well, that semi-final last year against Hawthorn. But my thing for that one has always been, that's the most memorable win, and it will be until another one comes along, and it's more memorable than this one still. But that one was a game that Hawthorn should have put us away earlier. Like we probably shouldn't have been in touching, even though it was still a record at the time, come back from a 3/4 time deficit, that we were in touching distance clearly because we were able to get the result. We probably shouldn't have been. We should have been at least 5 goals down probably, but the way Hawthorn had played earlier on in that game, they just burned a lot of opportunities, left the door ajar, we came bursting through it. And in famous fashion and still very, very memorable, an incredible second half, but mostly fourth quarter effort. This one was wire to wire. We had the forward half domination early. They had a little run in the middle of this first quarter where they, kicked 2 goals in a row, got ahead after we got ahead early, but then we got back in front by quarter time and, started padding that by half time. They have their little run. But as you said, that we respond impeccably, actually. Like for it to go back from 35 points or 30, whatever it was, back to 12 points as it was at one particular moment, but then for us to just come out of the blocks in that fourth quarter and flip the script of what has been the question mark over our side, particularly a few weeks ago after the St Kilda result, where your podcast paternity leave very, very smartly began. We flipped the script. We flipped a lot of scripts in that fourth quarter, and it was powerful. A little bit it was said on the night by the commentary when I watched the replay. They were talking about our scoring power when we can get our game, whatever our game plan. I don't say whatever our game plan is. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like sometimes it's hard to find it because we don't have the disposal to make ourselves look like we've got something cohesive going. But when we do, our disposal was better. It wasn't much different to Hawthorn's. It was a high-pressure game, but we disposed of it well enough. Our long kicking and all that did start working. We were able to connect with some marks. We outmarked them by 2-1, 46-23, and so we were able to control the ball. And then our scoring power came to the fore, and we scored 94 points against a team that's in the top 4 and had only lost two games to this point. So for me, all of that coming together, that just makes for what I think is the most complete win that our girls have put together in 4. Now we're getting close to 4 full seasons of AFLW footy. Obviously, the first couple of years didn't provide too many wins to even compare them to, but we've had a pretty good couple of years now. And this one, considering the opponent and everything, I just think that and how we played was just so impressive. And I came away absolutely buzzing from that. And I've been buzzing all weekend, despite some other sports teams of mine providing some potential kills to that buzz. I've not let that get to me too much, and I've just focused on the fact that this team made me really, really proud on Friday night.
Yeah, that's it, because ultimately they have no choice but to attack the end of this season with as much as they can to try and pull off what is highly unlikely, and that's another finals berth. But you focus on the task at hand, and I guess a couple of things went in our favour. Obviously, like you said, the control of the ball, the disposal efficiency, and I think Hawthorn is not willing to go toe-to-toe with us, but in a way allowing us to play our game, probably because they thought they could handle it. And in the end, our offensive, we basically played Pagan's paddock. and I know that's essentially what we try to do more often than not. We try and leave some space so that we can surge the ball when your Indy Tahoe is either camped there or she's moved up with a Gemma Houghton, and then they're getting it over the back and running into a goal. And that definitely helped us in this regard, because we've taken shots, and on Channel 7, the telecast, they showed a good graphic of where we were taking our shots from. And it was very corridor based, where a lot of our goals from, either corridor or very close. We've spoken about the inside 30 stat that we'd like to see. We were getting a lot of good looks, which in some of the games that we haven't got the chocolates in, we've lamented some very shallow entries where our link up play flowed a lot better in this game. And again, that may be a flow-on effect of Hawthorn just giving us a bit of rope. But that's not to discredit the way that we played and the way that we used the ball by and large either. And then on the flip side, we were able to really get our front half defense going. And it was really interesting. They interviewed Loz Arnell, I think it was at quarter time, and she mentioned Hawthorn's want to go wide out of defence to the flanks, and we marshalled those flanks fantastically well across the whole night, and they seemingly didn't have an answer for it, and they were really hesitant to attack the corridor, whereas we, to our detriment, on a lot of occasions throughout the season, we tend to throw caution to the wind more often than not, because it's really our one wood. It's what we base our game around. So I thought both our offense clicked and then our defense allowed us just to really dominate and continually add pressure to them, especially once the score got out of hand, and because we were getting good looks converting to goal. In the end, we had the same amount of scoring shots, funnily enough. But the flip side is that a lot of their shots were under more pressure than what ours were, and from less percentage, lower percentage locations as well.
Yeah. They didn't get too many. I mean, the stat that really speaks to that is that we had 9 marks inside 50 to their 4. That kind of shows we were getting marks inside 50, which we're generating some score from. We did, get a few goals, like, whether it be Bogue going from the pocket, Ash collecting one and snapping, but that was a very, very good snap by Ash too. She sized it up and snapped it through quite calmly.
Yeah. Derek's goal was also a good crumb from a hit out as well. That's lovely. Oh, that's what you want in a stoppage.
That was beautiful. And then you've got Popey, who's kind of popped up as being another Caitlin, although, spelt differently, but she's popping up with not quite a goal a game, I don't think, but she's popped up with a fair few goals this year, and she's quite consistent. Like, she's got quite a powerful left there, and but by and large,
she's just got a knack for impacting with very minimal possession numbers. Caitlin Pope, whether it be linking up or putting it on the scoreboard. I think you come away from most games and acknowledge and understand that she's not dominating, she's not filling the stat sheet, but she always seems to be in good places at good times when we need her.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of good things, and she had 6 disposals on the night at 100% efficiency with 5 tackles. Like, fuck yeah, give me that. Like, that's fine. That's great gear. Yeah. Like, you can come in and have that kind of impact with 74% time on ground, 4 kicks, 2 handballs, 100% efficiency with a mark and 5 tackles. Like, she's playing her role exactly as she's probably been tasked to. So, yeah, great stuff from Popey. But all those kind of goals are what you want to supplement a decent forward 50 entry game and a decent structure up forward, and to take 9 marks inside 50 and then have an incredible stat of 22 tackles to 7, I think it was, inside 50. I'm just trying to scroll back down. Yeah, 22 tackles inside 50 for us to their 7, which to one of my things that, as I've been saying all women's season, like the flogging a dead horse thing, that I like to say that, either flip the script on a statistical average across a year or even better it. And for the year, Hawthorn have been averaging 3 tackles more inside 50, but we're plus 15 in this game. So that we kind of, and we won the centre clearance we dominated centre clearance early. It ended up 12 apiece, but we had the first 5 of the game. It kind of set up just the storyline of the game that we were going to spend a lot of time in our forward half, put that pressure on, because they actually have more tackles for the game overall. But a lot of their tackles were probably in defensive 50 as well. It was just a hot kitchen down in our forward 50. Yeah. And they were just having to rely on, basically the most dangerous they looked was when they could get over the top of us and kind of, in a soccer parlance, break the offside trap and get forwards ahead of the ball. And Borgie was kind of like out one-on-one and a few of those kind of situations. they never looked dangerous when we were actually set up behind the ball, or they couldn't get that control of the game, and that's really because that's something I think we've had at times this year more than any other year. Even last year we were playing a lot of, we had a decent schedule to get ourselves into finals. Controlling a game against a good team is not something I've seen us do often, if really ever. Well, not ever to this extent, I don't think. We controlled this game, and that's what's an incredible 45% possession to 35% is an insane number against the top 4 team when we ourselves are looking like, still at this point, unlikely to play finals. There's a chance still, but you got to say we're on the outside looking in, but we've got a chance. But to control a game like that against a team that's going to probably finish top 4 is incredible stuff at this point of the season, with our injuries as well.
Yeah, it all goes into the melting pot, and it will also contribute to a lot of people's lament of our season. I'm sure we've all seen the conversations about the games gone past that we look back and again lament that things hadn't fallen our way, or we've lapsed so hard that we've blown it a little bit. Because you mentioned the percentage of possession. I mean, we're usually getting killed by 50 to 60 disposals this year, and we nearly match Hawthorn, which again speaks to just things clicking for whatever reason. I've brought up earlier this season that Gemma Houghton kind of had the cement hands going. Marks was sticking on leads. We were honouring leads. We were kicking and marking. We were linking up from defensive 50. Things just seemed to work. Now, that it wasn't the perfect product, obviously. We finished with 58.5% disposal efficiency, but the eye test would tell you that a lot was clicking, and to nearly match them in disposals, overall, that is, just goes to show what we're capable of if we can match a team in some of those regards, our statistical markers, because we're quite potent. Like you mentioned, it got brought up many times, both with who we have available in our forward line now and who we're also having to cover for that aren't there. And if it just goes to show that if we can get our link-up play going, a defence in the AFLW is left majorly exposed to our dynamic forward mix. Yeah, which coming into the season, you and I were quite apprehensive about. Obviously, Indy Tahoe was still pegged as a defender back then, but it's just funny how things change.
Yeah, I mean,
now we have a leading goal scorer.
Yeah. I mean, that's something. I mean, we'll talk about some players like Tahoe later on in the votes, of course, but I think it's probably worthy to bring up now just how. I mean, I think Arnell's said herself. It's she didn't even play up forward for the first 3 weeks of the season. It's just a switch they flipped at a point when they realised they needed someone that could do what she can do, and she's incredibly accurate as well. But she's also taken the mark. She's athletic. She takes early goals were from marking opportunities, but then she's snapped a couple in this game as well. Her ground games are really good, and I think that's what's made Gemma's season grow as well, is because she's got a tandem, like a partner up forward that's as crafty and as intelligent, slightly different game, obviously different game styles, but
commanding a lot of attention.
Yeah, but yeah, she is. I mean, she has to, because she's a great mark overhead. And then, but you can't think, oh, if it gets to ground, then I've got the win there too, because she just consistently battles and nips at your heels and often ends up winning the ball and getting a shot on goal, which she did a couple of times in this one. And I think that's opened up Gemma going up the ground early in the year. It was just like, okay, then who's she going to kick to? Because then we already started, because we've pulled Woodland out. Woodland rest down, but she's and that's been a great move as well. But I think the Indy going forward has unlocked being able to just keep Woodland in the middle more and allow Gemma to know she's got a partner in crime, essentially, with Teakle not being there, and obviously Caitlin Wendland kind of did a little bit of that ground game work as well last year. So there was kind of probably players like to have trust and understanding in who the players are ahead of them, and Gemma and Indy have played together for a few years, and now that's I mean, Gemma's year, she's up in the top 5 in goal scoring after that game as well in their whole AFL.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, and we weren't expect that. Earlier in the year, you and I were both like, oh, God, Gemma's been a bit quiet. Like, and then suddenly she's top 5.
Yeah, or just like a nearly game constantly.
I think
it felt. Anyway.
Yeah. But what's even better is it doesn't feel like Gemma's having to, like last year, she kicked 17 goals last year. I put up on Twitter or something like that over the weekend that Gemma basically is on an equal career best for a season right now. Any more goals for the year is going to make Gemma's best year as a goal scoring. And she's right in the race for the first player to 100 as well. But she's not having to do as, like, she's got more help. So she's still kicking the goals and doing a lot of Gemma things, but it felt like last year at times she was doing those things and also feeling like she had to do a bit of everything, particularly because there was that middle period of the season where Tika was out as well. Obviously, last year felt like she was a one-woman wrecking machine at times. Like she'd have that quarter where she's like busting through tackles and trying to get shots on goal, and she probably missed a few. But now she's like coming up the field, and she's either running and seeing the goal squares open and putting one through, not even getting the distance, but she's just letting it dribble through, and she's a good kick that way. Or she's actually just Indy's ahead, and she's like, okay, I've got help, I've got absolute talent ahead of me, and her game's kind of like she's a bit more dynamic in what she can do, and understanding that she doesn't have to do everything, because then Woodlands, she's starting to find her strength in everyone else, as well as the fact that she's still kicking goals as well. It was really, really fun seeing this evolution come to, like, that was like a real coalescing of everything we've kind of built to for the last 4 to 6 weeks since Indy's gone forward on Friday night. I just found that fascinating to watch how that's all working now.
And it must be said that Gemma was actually the one that put the team on her back early and got the ball rolling for us. Obviously with some handy support around that.
Those Jazzy Stewart kicks into her were fucking fantastic too.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And while Jazzy Stewart has had to bide her time, a decent kick is what she has in her repertoire. It's what she displayed last year. We've obviously monikered Gemma the barometer. There was a lot of barometer chat on the telecast as well, which I loved. Acknowledging, our Gemma Houghton as the barometer of the team, and I'm going, yeah, she absolutely fucking is. But it definitely should be noted that she was on early, and that definitely has a flow-on effect. You mentioned about games last year where she was just up and about and getting the momentum swinging our way or doing her darndest, and when those things were happening early, the team was up and about, and mixing with that, Josie MULES-ROBINSON as well. She came for the fight, ended with a couple of goals herself, I believe, and some of our out-and-out leaders came to play, and it's just I've mentioned it a few times this year. It is funny how that flows on to what is a young team around them.
Yeah. I think Juzzie's come into, like, there's a few players that have kind of grown into the season. Like, we were kind of looking for ways, you and I both mentioned it a few times, or in the first half of the season in particular, like how to get Juzzie more involved in the game. She gets her 2 goals, and then she even the first goal of Indy's 3 in the last quarter that kind of broke the game open. It's like Juzzie about 40 metres out in front, and she's kind of getting tackled, and she kind of just kicks around her body as she's going to the floor.
Yeah. And they called it a karate kick. Kick.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's a perfect description of it. And obviously as we're getting used to now, thankfully, is like Indy and Gemma were both actually just the ones that were going to be first to it, and Indy was, and kicks it through. And immediately as Jussie gets up, she's like pointing like goals, goals, goal. Like she knows straight away what's going to happen. And you just see, like, just as I was talking about with Gemma, but players like Jussie as the forward line as kind of group has developed with Indy now as a forward, like you just got to call her a forward now. Like she's leading the AFLW goal kicking with a couple of weeks ago. Like that's a forward. We're happy to stick with her at forward, particularly with our defense playing decent footy as well, considering our game plan. But yeah, Juzzie's celebration, by the way, for her sister who had a baby. So just a lot of babies in the Port world, particularly with yours coming in, and then that's what her celebration was about as well. So Yeah, I think like a lot of players have, as this group has coalesced over the last, I think the St Kilda game was like a watershed moment. And you mentioned before about maybe lamenting some of the slips we've had throughout the season. Unfortunately, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. Like we don't get this game probably, unfortunately, without some of the trials and tribulations we've gone through this year, because this is what the learnings they keep talking about coalesce into is a result like this. Yeah, and it's so much easier to just sit there and go, oh fuck, like if we won these ones, and it is true. If we'd kicked one more goal against Geelong, we win. If we'd gotten ahead against Fremantle earlier, maybe we win that one. Not let it slip against St Kilda, certainly, and even West Coast to an extent. Shit, we're sitting comfortably up there. There's a lot of results, but I don't think we wouldn't have learned to this point. And, this is still such an incredibly young group. That is the case, and they've had a tougher schedule this year. If you look at the teams we've lost to and had close results, that's why I think there's some chatter on socials about how this team's gone backwards this year, because a lot of people just look at it as a binary thing that we made a prelim last year, we should be better, like there or better this year, and it's just not the way AFLW in particular works. I think this team has been more competitive this year than they've been in any other year, particularly with the fact we've got 2 wins against top 4 sides now. Unfortunately, let a couple slip, but they've been close results. The only result that's been truly one-sided is the Kangaroos one, which, name me a side that hasn't. Really, I saw there was I had a brief look at the match report from the Kangaroos-Crows game, not for any Schadenfreude. It was just because we play the Crows this week. I was having a look at a few things, and the writer of the AFL website's match report about the Kangaroos-Crows game was like, sometimes a senior side plays a scrimmage against a junior side just to essentially beat them and get some experience. This is what Kangaroos-Crows was like. It's just absolutely really, really pulled no punches about just how the discrepancy was there. And the Crows kicked 1 goal, 1 to 3/4 time against that Kangaroo side. So,
right.
So that Kangaroo side is very, very good. They've won 22 in a row.
It kind of bores me, to be honest, Dave. Like the Kangaroos bore me.
Yeah.
By how good they are, admittedly.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned the discourse about the team taking a step back this year, and while I acknowledge it, because like you said, in a binary way we have, but I don't know how to feel wholly and solely, because at the end of the day, everyone is just fighting for a second place. I mentioned it in I think it was my voice note last week. So is a step back in 2025 the worst thing in the world when we're getting experience into young players? I always want to play finals as whatever sport it is in, if there's a final structure. I think it's great for experience, but I don't know how to feel about it. Like I lament the losses, particularly when it's balanced by such a fantastic performance as it was on Friday night. But at the end of the day, I go, yeah, we play finals, but who's got a chance in hell at the moment against this boringly good North Melbourne side who have somehow concocted just a list that's the envy of the competition?
Yeah, you're all playing for the opportunity to essentially possibly end up on the end of a result that is the equivalent of 2007.
Perform a miracle.
And if you basically got to hope for a Jazzy Garner or Ash Riddell or both to get injured before the end, before a grand final, because they're just not losing if they don't lose a few key pillars of their side. And that could happen. And then if you make that grand final and beat them, then you're going to love it. But all things being equal, if they're relatively fit in a grand final, they're just not losing that game the way they're going at the moment. So, you're right. And I think if you look back on our results in previous years against top sides or the top 8 sides, and how we go against them, we're rarely, we rarely haven't been competitive too often up until this year. So I think that's where I find a lot of And then again, to key in on this result, just some of the statistical markers we're starting to hit against good sides. Disposals. We closed that gap. Like that's been just a massive discrepancy all year, mainly, and we that's relatively the same. we had 363 more meters gained than Hawthorn did for the game. Like overall as teams, it was 4,171 to 3,808. So like there's a game plan thing about how we've been trying to play that has kind of come to fruition here finally, for Port. Like the way we've been wanting to do things this year was there. We gained the Pagan's paddock, as you alluded to, and just the fact that we're a side that wants to kick and get forward at pace, and it'd be lovely to have the handball game be able to. That's just the thing to work on over the off season. Really, is the handball game and just being able to flesh that out, because you do need to sometimes use the handball to get out of. Because there was a few instances of that on the night. For fuck's sake! I just wish we could hit a handball.
Well, then they had the right idea. There was one between Hammond and Jermac on the back flank.
Oh, they were running and
perfect idea, perfect link up, 1-2 situation, and a poor handball just puts them under immediate pressure, and I think it ends up as a stoppage in the end when they had a clear run. And Jermac loves to put on the jets, which we've noticed a lot, and Hammond does too. We haven't been able to see a lot of her this season, but the girls have still got a lot to work on. Let's not shy away from that. And I guess we are in a weird headspace now where we're just absolutely cock a hoop and over the moon about this performance. We lament what has not gone our way because we just want to win as sporting fans and whatnot. But we also, acknowledge where we could get to if those things are improved upon. Yeah.
I think most impressive to me was the fact that we had less clangers. Hawthorn had +7, which I think a lot of the stuff we've been talking about this year has been trying to stick to our DNA whilst improving the game plan. So our pressure game was forcing Hawthorn into some errors and turnovers. We only had 2 more turnovers for the game, which considering I think we were a lot more. I mean, we had a lot more kicks for the game, so that's going to happen. But there wasn't as many of those really poor. There was still a couple of those kicks where you just head in hands, it went straight to a Hawthorn player, but wasn't nearly as many. And you've just got to mitigate those differences, and that's what this team did on the night through just being a team that wanted the result. It's
amazing what happens when you lift your eyes and look for a target rather than just put it on the boot, which. Yeah, I mean, that St Kilda game in particular, I obviously didn't get to discuss it with you at length, but I think it was something like 12 to 15 smothers St Kilda performed on our kicks versus less than 5 in our regard. And it just spoke to the fact that, we were getting the ball in congestion, but we were so predictable in the fact that we were just going to chuck it on the boot. So all St Kilda had to do was just get in the way. And they did. It was a ridiculous stat that went in conjunction with how that game unfolded. But then to fast forward to this game, I think a lot of what worked in what you're saying is that we were looking for targets both in slow build-up play, but also when we were trying to explode and link up in a more fast-paced manner. And while at the same time, like you said, still culprits of a bit of grab and kick at times. I think in particular Ash Woodland, while I love her and her game and where she's come to, she's a bit of a culprit of that still. And as a midfielder, you need to be a bit more, you need to have a bit more finesse, a bit more polish, awareness about your disposal.
Yeah, I love the Woodland move has been just such a great one as well. I still think it's fascinating. I mean, I think I mentioned this before, but just to key in on it as a stat to really look at, because I mean, I talked to you about it in text that we have nine less disposals, which is still a lot closer than we've been across the year, but have the 45% to 35% possession for the match, which is an interesting stat to look at in isolation in the fact that we have less of the ball but more possession, but that marking statistic, which is one maybe this time last year we were starting to improve, but certainly in the middle of last year, you and I were really lamenting the fact we could sometimes barely take 20 marks in a match.
Absolutely.
And you look at this game, and we've taken 46 marks to Hawthorn's 23. So on the season average, we take 41 for the year, and Hawthorn 38. So we were able to just put so much pressure on Hawthorn and disrupt their gameplay that they take 15 less marks to the game, and their average, and we obviously take a few more over our average. But overall, just for the match itself, 46-23, being able to find targets. Just even coming out of 50, like you mentioned before, like they were struggling to get out of their defensive 50, and it was often it would come to stoppage, and maybe they just get it. Their one area of the game they were probably clearly better in was the handball game, and sometimes in those halfback flank stoppage, almost stoppage situations or congestion areas, they'd get a handball out, and then they'd be able to get forward. That was basically their only way into scoring, and they had a couple of periods where they did threaten. Again, their control of the match wasn't there, and that was largely down to we've got so many players that are so much better at marking the ball. Ella Heads has come in, and she's just a great mark. You've got Matilda Scholes, who's
loved her game.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've talked about Matilda's marking improving markedly since this time last year.
Nice.
I guess it was about this time last year she took the mark of the year, and it's kind of been just a stratospheric.
Yeah, well, it was in Pride round. Yeah.
And you and I were doing the Matilda's learned how to putt, like kind of, thing with the marking at this point last year, and she's just gone ahead. She still, has a couple here and there, but that happens in AFL men's as well. Good markers of the ball sometimes just miss it. A slight timing issue in an individual moment, but the fact
even one of our favourites, Charlie Dixon, was the culprit of either running under the ball or a pair of hard hands. So, it definitely happens.
Doing all the hard work to get there and then just not finishing the move. But yeah, by and large, because there's so many more players that are finding some confidence in the kick mark game, and unfortunately, it's just sometimes the structure hasn't allowed us to do that this year. But between just having the pressure on Hawthorn when they had the ball and then just being a little bit calmer in possession and just as you said, things just clicked. Like sometimes there's no players in all sports around the world will just say, we don't know why things happen when things are bad.
Flow state.
But when it starts going well for you, you just kind of just try to go with it. And they certainly did that in the night. And that marking number at the game, I was like, we're having a pretty good game. But when I saw that we literally doubled them up for marks in the game quite significantly, that's just really impressive to me and shows, again, to those saying we've taken a backward step this year, this is a very, very key indicator of a forward step in how we're playing. Yes, the season results and how the season's played out, but again, there's a lot of that goes into the fact this is a 12-game schedule in an 18-team competition that is heavily weighted to how results went the previous year. So when you actually look at the stats of how we're playing this year, like that marking number is a real key indicator of a step up from where we were last year. Yes, we may not make finals, but I mean, to your point, who needs to make finals in a year that's just playing for second anyway? That's a little facetious. I'd love to play finals, but I'm looking at I'm trying to make the point that I'm trying to look at things that actually show a market improvement for this team, and I think there's a few areas of this game that really show that.
Yeah, it's a great discussion to have because, I mean, even early last year, there was some performances that were quite underwhelming, and we managed to get on that massive run playing some less than fantastic opponents and some that were around us at the times that we played them. Whereas you've mentioned it quite a number of times this year, being competitive by and large with a better quality of opponent, while we are all aware of the downfalls of those losses that have come, it is an interesting discussion to have in regards to step forward, step back, stand still, because there are some improvements like you've just mentioned, particularly marking, which helps our game to no end. But we're also competitive against better opposition while not collecting the wins that we would want to and that we quite rightly could have. Yeah, because as it stands now, we may well finish ninth or 10th. We could very well finish knocking right on the door of finals. So where we finished, sixth at the end of the minor round last year? Like, we made the preliminary in the end, but at the end of the minor round, we finished sixth. So ninth is, from a binary point of view, hypothetically, if we finish there, it is a step back, but it's not too far from where we finished last year, and we've played better opposition this year. So definitely a good faith debate to have. Obviously, there are other perspectives out there which I don't really care for, but the discussion is well earned, I think.
Yeah, I just don't think this side. I think if you look at this side last year and put them in the regular season, if they played Hawthorn last year, like they probably lose that match. And I don't think we're not. That again, that Hawthorn semi-final was just an incredible last quarter effort, where kind of things just that happened in football, similar to the St Kilda win against Melbourne this year and all that in the AFL men's. Like these miracles of football just happen, but to have a win like this actually takes a fundamental team effort and a plan and execution from start to finish. You don't just win these games by 35 points against top four opposition. As a team that was a $3.50 outsider, I think I just had a look back at my notes from last week. We were $3.50 and they were $1.29. Like those are pretty, pretty long odds, and particularly for AFLW. I just so impressed with this win and a lot of those statistical markers that go into that. Again, it's 2 top 4 wins for the year now, which is really, really impressive to me. I'm trying to think, do you have any other areas of the game you wanted to hit? I'm just trying to have a quick look at my notes, but while I am, let me know if you've got anything else in particular that you wanted to bring up before we get to votes and a few more individual partner areas.
It would really be just a lot of honourable mentions, because I've got about as many honourable mentions as I do votes this week. So we could probably just get into that if we're going to start singling players out, because I think we've covered the game itself, but also the discussion points around that. I think very well. It is easy to fall back into negative perspectives, and when you're rage baited to the hilt on social media and whatnot, it is easy. But I just really want to enjoy this for a bit longer, and then hey, we have a chance to just flow that into a showdown win, touch wood. Hopefully our time has come in that regard, but this game shouldn't be treated as a flash in the pan. For me, it was a signal of what we're capable of when we actually do execute the skills to our game plan, and help that flow on, and what it looks like, and the X factor, the dangerous players that we have at our disposal when we are at our best. This game should be a monument to what we're looking to do at this point forward for the rest of this year and into next year after another preseason.
And I think it's particularly really, really impressive. It's really good for the girls to have this kind of result, because they've had a lot of those half chances this year at wins against good opposition. Certainly the Melbourne one was there, but for them to actually have this kind of performance against a good team for 4 quarters, they've got a lot of data to take from that into the off-season, a bit of confidence as well. Again, we're not writing off the rest of the season yet, but it is still just objectively, it is unlikely to play finals. We're still a chance, which is great. I hope, if I wasn't expecting that going into this review, that I'd be talking about it that way. But I mean, as I said at the back end of the squad show last week, I was hoping to be reviewing some form of miracle. It wasn't even a miracle; it was an absolutely deserved result. So, I mean, 40. The last stat I hadn't mentioned yet, but 45 inside 50s to 39. Like when you're winning inside 50s, it doesn't always mean a win. We know that certainly from the men's game, but to win inside 50s and win the match in dominant fashion, it's just like that's a sign to a lot of things going right in how you're playing football. So if you can kind of lock in on those things across the off season and make it a more consistent aspect going into 2026, it'll be the next step in the evolution of this side. And certainly, Arnell deserves some credit for that too. She's gotten some criticism this year, and that's justified. Like unfortunately, in sports, it starts and stops at the coach a lot, because that's the easiest part to change. And some people have questioned. Now, I said last week, I'm sorry, just one more point. I figured I'll bring it up with you, but that a few people, again, Twitter's just a small microcosm of the world, so it's not like I'd take too much stock in it. But there was a few people going, how much longer does Arnell have? It was a very small area, but it was, I thought, worth bringing up that she is extended through the end of 2026, and I think there's no reason to not give her that time and then see where we are at that point. And I think this is a great result for her as well, because it's been a tough year probably for her trying to work out, because as the coach, you're putting out a game plan and you're like, why isn't this working? got it would be incredibly frustrating. Like, we're frustrated as fans. It must be even more frustrating for her, who's trying to make this thing work. And so I think, having given some criticism at times this year, then it's only fair that we say this is a great result for her too, because she's the coach and she's kind of the leader of this side developing as it has over the last couple of years, and this result is as much obviously for all the players, it's theirs, but for Arnell, I mean, I don't know who the genesis of the Indy Tahoe move was, but I'm sure Arnell had a fair bit to play in that, and there's a lot of things that have gone on this year that she's going to have had a heavy hand in, obviously, as the head coach, and she deserves the credit after a result like this as well, because I think you're starting to see some of the fruits of the labour of what has been a tough year at times for both the players and the coach. But this result definitely, she earns a few taps on the back for the way they went about it on the night.
Yeah, I thought you covered it really well last week in your assessment of her and some of the criticism that went for her. Just a humble shout out to you, pat on the back for you as well. Some of your best work while I've been away, to be honest. And unfortunately, as we're well aware of, everyone does suffer from a bit of footy fatigue, and we're probably speaking to a lot less of a catchment of people. So I guess a lot of people are just missing out. So I wanted to give you a pat on the back, holding the line while I've been away. But yeah, the discussion about Lauren Arnell last week was a good one, because our progress for the first 3 years of our existence has been linear. And this year is the only year that on a binary level, we have gone backwards. But I don't think that means you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like you said, as fans and as members, we rightly have the opportunity to ask questions of the coach about what she's doing, what she's implementing, her messaging and whatnot. Just simply asking what is going on. But that doesn't mean that we've made the wrong decision or that we went too early in extending her. Getting to a preliminary final last year in the fashion that we did does earn a bit of credit. And I believe you also brought up the fact that we have been competitive in all but one game. The Brisbane game score looks bad, but like you rightly pointed out, quite similarly to the West Coast game, the margin was a lot closer than what it ended up being with a late flurry. And as I probably hung on to too much, thanks to some questionable umpiring decisions at point blank range in the Brisbane game. So the discussion is fair if it's obviously in good faith. But to reiterate my point, I don't think you can throw the baby out with the bathwater because players aren't executing skills appropriately, and that is a collective problem, not just a one or two people problem, such as the coach and whatnot. So there's work to be done, but clearly, as you just said, she's done something right, both with the Indy Tahoe move, like you said, and leading up to this game and some other games this year. Melbourne was second on the ladder when we played them. Hawthorn was second on the ladder when we played them, and we've come away with the chocolates. And we do walk taller at Alberton more often than not as well. It definitely plays a part, but you've still got to execute, and it's not like we're undefeated at home either. So there's a few ticks there, and I think the discussion is a good one to have.
Yeah. I said it's not like she's got a massive extension. It's through the end of next year, which I think she's rightly earned. I think by the end of next year, we'll have a fair idea of where this team's going, and she'll either earn a little bit more time or it'll be time. But that's a discussion to have next year, and she certainly deserves plenty of credit after that result. And I think that'll put a little bit of credit back in the bank as well, because you can clearly see there's a way they want to play, and it's just going to come down to some players that are very, very young and still developing in their AFL bodies and their skills. Like, as that develops, hopefully we'll keep seeing the fruits of the labour, and we certainly saw some fairly good signs of it on the weekend, as again we win quite comfortably against a very, very good side that will be playing finals, likely with a double chance. So if you can win that well against a side like that, you're not just scraping over the line and getting a lucky win. That's a
You're
dominant.
doing something right.
Yeah, that's a dominant win, and again, one that I think at the moment goes down as maybe not the most memorable, but I think it's the most complete and best win that this group of girls have had in their almost 4 seasons of existence. So to kind of tie it off with a bow from how I started the podcast, it's I'm mightily impressed and very, very proud of them for what they displayed on the night. I guess that means we get to the votes. You get to hear this sting live for the first time in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet you're excited. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. Oh yeah, you can hear my voice crack live for the first time in a few weeks. I've really, really appreciated your votes coming through in voice note over the last couple of weeks, Jamie. It has provided me a fair bit of time to chew up the podcast, but and I've let by default with your voice notes let you go first over the last couple of weeks to hear yours first. So I will go first this week to let mine be heard first, and then see where you ended up with yours. So maybe I'll keep my honourable mentions for after you've gone, because as you mentioned, there's a few. So I'll just go straight with my votes, and then we can get to the honourable mentions when you get to your votes. So in my one spot, and I've been massively, massively impressed with this gal all year, but I think she had a great game here. She was deserving of maybe a few more votes in another week, but it's a tough week for that. Molly Brooksby in the one spot, 19 disposals, 9 of them contested. She went at 63.2% disposal efficiency coming out of halfback with 5 rebound 50s, and a massive 13 intercept possessions as well. A couple of 3 tackles, 2 clearances, 389 gained. Just a real. There's a lot of again when we get to the honourable mentions, there's a few that she had along with her, but I just think hers was probably the most. She just really impressed me both in person and on replay as well. She's really for such a young player, still only second year. It's scary to think about the kind of player she could turn into when she's already this good. So shout out to Molly Brooksby, the one spot. In my 2 spot, I think 2 through 5 really all deserve like 4 votes each or something like that. Like it's hard, or 5 votes each. I've got Ash Woodland in the 2 spot. I think she deserves. It's probably maybe just I split it with her disposal efficiency being below 50%. But I think she's playing. I mean, it's so incredible that she's gone into the midfield and looked so at home. 23 disposals with 12 of those contested, which might come to some of that disposal efficiency because she was our top contested possession player. She was top centre clearances. She had 4, so 5 of her clearances were from the centre, which I think a few weeks ago when I did a review, I said that we only had one player that had more than 1 centre clearance, and it was like Matilda Scholes in one of those results where I was just like, we really need someone that's going to go with Matilda at the centre. Like we need a midfielder to be getting centre clearance numbers, and it was great to see Woodland have such a strong role in that. She had the 5 score involvements, 5 tackles, 383 metres gained, 4 inside 50s, and she had a goal herself as well. A very, as I mentioned earlier in the pod, very, very well taken goal. Just calm, collected, going around the body, and for her to be able to rest forward. I think the commentators mentioned it, like, geez, it's a luxury to have Woodland be able to rest forward. And then they did kind of talk about how it's good to have a big midfielder like tall, and I started thinking about she's our Patrick Cripps, like not to do the AFL men's comparison, but like that's a positive one. Like just to have a tall, strong-bodied midfielder that can go forward, and so loved Woodland's game. In my 3 spot. Matilda Scholes, like again, unlucky to not be 5, but who knows? Like, who do you? I have a very clear argument for my number 5 one, but Matilda's great game was great. I think I was probably. It's not her fault. I was disappointed to not get the Lucy Wales matchup because I keyed in on that in the squad show.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And then I didn't even know until the game started. I was like, "Where's Wales?" It
was pretty late.
Appendicitis, which so hopefully she's okay. And appendicitis is one that just hits and you have to get it dealt with. So, but she dominated, and that's all you can do when you put up against a lesser opponent. And no disrespect to. I can't even think of the name of the gal. So just
there was Erdley, I think was one of them.
Yeah, but
I only have power.
It's probably again a bit more of a battery that's going up against
Erdley and Vukic.
Yeah,
particularly.
So she didn't get the matchup we were expecting, but again she dominated. She had the 34 hit outs, which is just fucking insane numbers. Like 21 disposals, 11 contested. She went over 60% efficiency. She had the 6 clearances. She had the 5 inside 50s, like 479 metres gained and 10 score involvements. Like, I should have her higher, but like there's a lot of contenders. So, so yeah, Scholes at the 3. Dowrick at the 4. Like Matilda Scholes and Abby Dowrick are like the battery, like pitcher and catcher in baseball. Like just them when they're operating at this level is incredible. And she had the 21 disposals as well. She went at 66%, which is like really like getting up there for Dowrick's games, particularly against good opponent. She had 7 contested, 4 clearances, 6 tackles, 498 gained, and she had a great goal as well. So a lot of these players chipping in with goals to round out a very good game, like in the middle and all that. So which is really, really great. And obviously, I mean, I just think when a player's kicking 5 goals in a game like this and playing an Indy and the season she's having, I know it's less disposals and all that, but I think when a player's kicking 5 goals in the AFLW against a great opponent like this, I've got to give her the 5 votes. I think Indy's, I think my rationale with it was that there's been a few games this year that we simply don't win. Like you could have Scholes doing what she's doing, you can have Dowrick doing what she's doing, and if you don't have Indy to finish it off, we're not winning the games. Whereas Indy's come in there and she's like winning. She's basically she's the cherry on top, and she's actually doing it to a high level. Like 14 disposals and 8 contested, so that's actually a fairly good game there. But then she has the 5 goals, 6 marks with 5 of them inside 50, I think. The 2 of them contested. 9 score involvements, obviously, with 5 goals too. So that's a fair bit of it there. But her accuracy is incredible. She's leading the goal scoring in the AFLW for a player that had kicked 5 goals in her career coming into this year, and didn't even start playing at forward until a few weeks into the season. But yeah, just on this game, I think 5 goals 2 in a game against top 4 opposition, and playing the way she did is an incredible result. And yeah, I had to give her the 5 votes. I'm loving her game this year. I think she's just.
I had a feeling you might.
Yeah,
I had a feeling you might.
It's hard to weight how different stats work, but it was interesting seeing Indy, Dowrick, and Woodland all, I think, had 97 fantasy points each. And then Scholes is at 119, which I thought was interesting. And I hate that Scholes is at 119, but she was.
Yeah, just get an extra point.
Yeah.
Or one less.
Yeah. I was just like, I think for Port players, we should just write to the fantasy department and just say, we'll be happy with 1 point less for Port players if we never have to see 119 attributed. We'll just take the hit. But yeah, Indy's game was, the 5 goals in a range of ways, like, whether it be a set shot right out in front or on the, one close in. There was a goal from distance after like gathering from the ground and kind of going almost on the outside of the boot a little bit. There was lots of variety in how she went about it. So yeah, Indy was my best on. Really interested to see where you go with yours.
Yeah, thank you. Save our honourable mentions for the end because I kind of do want to just briefly discuss a lot of attributes of those honourable mentions. So, although I will just mention that Molly Brooksby unfortunately landed in honourable mentions for mine. Had a feeling that you might get her in too, and I'm interested and enjoying her playing up the ground a little bit more, and I get it. She's one of the best kicks in the side. She makes good decisions more often than not, and she can actually kick on both feet, which has come to the fore as she's moved up the ground a little bit more. So, and because at the end of the day, we were essentially using her for a long kick out of defensive goal square, like to kick it in, and plenty of people can do that, even if they kick a little bit shorter. We had Sachi Sam doing it, for example. But my 1 vote, she hasn't really featured in the votes a lot this year. So I wanted to give the barometer some love. I gave her 1 vote. Like I mentioned, she got the ball rolling for us in the first half. 13 disposals, 6 contested. She went at 61%. She had the Richie Beno for metres gained with the 2-2-2. 5 marks, 2 of which are contested. The 3 goals in her 7 score involvements and 3 inside 50s herself, getting up the ground. A couple of players in my honourable mentions who've actually got some votes and some more consistent votes. So I just thought, you know what, Gemma, it was a bit of a barometer game, so she gets the 1 this week.
Mm-hmm.
2 votes, Ash Woodland as well. I think you talk about players growing into their roles or growing into the year. I think even though she started well, I think there's some little subtleties that have come into her game as well as the season's gone on. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks she's clearly strong, and she's got she clearly some strong legs, strong core, and she's actually been nudging players off their balance to get those balls on the
Mm-hmm.
ground. And you mentioned the clearances as well. I noticed that she's adapting even further into that midfield, that in and under the grunt work on at ground level. I agree that her disposal efficiency could be better, should be better, and it's probably what brings her down. But apart from that, it is really a complete game, and she is quite unlucky to get the 2 votes from us both when you look at all the key stats that she racked up along the way. My 3 votes goes to Abby Dowrick. It was a very, very welcome return. We
Mm-hmm.
certainly missed her versus Brisbane, and she hit the ground running. You've mentioned the stats. Loved her goal early on in the game, and yeah, just an Abby Dowrick performing at that level again. Would still like a few more disposals on the ledger, but I do enjoy the fact that we've over the last couple of weeks in particular, we've got a few people into the 20s, whereas we're more often than not this year we've been lucky to get one in the 20s.
Yeah, Woodland's
So look,
58 disposals and 48 disposals in the last 2 weeks, I think. So, which
that's
yeah,
very true.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a welcome statistic. No one's blowing the lights out like some other midfielders across the competition in way of disposal numbers. But look, ball don't lie, and if you can get the result on the board, then you know maybe it doesn't matter that much if everyone's contributing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so here's where the debate continues. So my 4 votes goes to Indy Tahoe. And I acknowledge everything you said, of course. And I had a feeling that she would be your best on ground. For me, I think it's worth noting that she had 4 disposals in the first half. And as a forward, we do across the men's competition and across the women's season here, we do like to give them a bit of franking credits because it's hard to judge the effectiveness of forwards and defenders at times.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, in conjunction with the 4 disposals in the first half, um, if you don't have a Schultz or a Dowrick or a Woodland getting it to her, then she can't kick the goals. Much like if a Butters or a Bergman or a Horn Francis aren't getting it to a Georgiadis, he doesn't get the
Yeah.
opportunity to kick the goal. So that's where I have Schultz in my best on ground. She absolutely dominated ruck, admittedly against lesser opponent than what you built up in your lead up. I just watched Matilda Schultz play, and there's some innate qualities about how she goes about it, about how she marshals the ground. She runs it. I mean, she's running away from players who you just at a quick glance you would think would be outrunning her. Shorter players, more visually nimble, if a weird way to put it.
No, no, you mean because we look at big, tall players and just immediately think they're going to be cumbersome. That's just
You assume,
tradition.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there was several instances where she's just exploded. So she's had the 21 disposals, 11 of which were contested. Like you've mentioned, the 10 score involvements is of utmost importance for mine, particularly in the women's competition where
Mm.
scoring is a lot more valuable, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think, I'm not sure if there's too much doubt. There will be a couple of players challenging her for the best and fairest, but if she's not winning back-to-back BNFs, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah. She should be the All Australian ruck, and then she should be joining that side by Indy Tahoe, I think. Like, I think they're there. And I think
Yeah, yeah,
I'm very conscious of the fact I think I'm a bit guilty of doing to Scholes what NBA voters have done to LeBron throughout his career. Because objectively, if you look at the NBA MVP, maybe not in the
and
last
the
four or
bar's up
five,
here.
yeah, no, maybe not in the last 4 or 5 years, but for at least a decade of LeBron's career, objectively, he was the best player in the league. He was the most valuable player. He was making some bad sides competitive and to the point of making finals. That sides that immediately collapsed and were a non-factor in as soon as he left them. I think I'm guilty. I've been conscious. Even when I was doing my votes today, I was like, "How the fuck have I got Scholes at 3?" And I think I mentioned it when I got there. I was just like, "This is unfair." And I kind of thought about that earlier when I was doing my votes. I was like, I was mad at NBA voters for doing that to LeBron, and I'm doing it and conscious of it. But I was just like, I want to get the. I was like, I was really happy with Derek's game, but yeah, I am. Scholes objectively is our best and fairest. If she's playing every game of the year, she's objectively going to probably be our best player. And if someone can actually supersede her while she's still playing that well, then that's going to be a very good thing for us. But you're right, she's the best and fairest. And I think friend of the pod, Simon, who I met at the Bulldogs game, he messaged, was that last week he mentioned something about the All-Australian? I think he did ask me about something about the All-Australian. I meant to mention it last week about Scholes' All-Australian chances. And I just think at this point, there's some capable rucks, like Edmonds is very good. But Scholes beat Edmonds a couple of weeks ago. And then, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the Wales matchup. But, I think Scholes she would have got the better of her. Her game has rounded out so well this year compared to where she was last year when we were like, gee, she's really good last year. We were already calling her a unicorn last year. And then this year she's rounded out the game. The whole like Matilda's learned how to putt stuff is just normal now. Like we don't even make that joke anymore because she's just marking the ball and and she's still got so much development to come.
I think what is most telling in her position specifically is the last quarters. Like you mentioned the matchup versus Edmonds and when you reviewed it, acknowledging how stuffed Edmonds looked at the end of it. And even in this game, even though she was up against 2 or 3 ruck opponents across the game, she's playing, not upward of 90% plus game time every single week. She is just running out games so much better. She's obviously so much more fit than her ruck opponents across the competition because more often than not, either from the start of the last quarter or deep into the last quarter, her opponents are on their haunches for, more or less, and she's fronting up continually, exploding away from contests, bringing other players into the game. She was on AFLW Weekly with Georgie Parker and Sarah Burt last week, I think it was, with an interview, and she mentioned just the amount of running that her and Abby Darrick, obviously doing a lot together as partners, put in a lot of extras in terms of running and whatnot, and it's clearly paying dividends in her role and when she's matched up against her opponent, or in some cases two opponents who were tag teaming against her and still run out of puff.
Yeah, I think it's something I've definitely noticed this year. Is like last year at times, maybe you could see that maybe she was running out of puff in a game, and nothing against her like overall fitness. It was just like you're still developing your AFL tank, so to speak, and this year it hasn't been nearly as noticeable at any moment where Matilda, like she runs off for her breaks here and there, and that's when your Gaunts or Tahos or whoever else. I think who the fuck? I swear during the game, this has only just come to me. I swear Ebony O'Day took a ruck match, like a ball, like I think it was a throw in. I think Ebbs was the one that nominated and went up.
There was a few odd ones because even Ella Heads ended up with a hit out.
Yeah, I don't think Ebbs certainly got a hit out at all, but she was. I swear. I remember at the game, this has just come back to me, so it's a real flash in the. It was just interesting because I mentioned I think after the Bulldogs match about some people talking about what Port are doing at the second ruck thing, and I was thinking you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. When you've got someone as good as Matilda Scholes, it's very hard to have a true second ruck in the side, and we haven't had someone put their hand up to do that. So I can understand why we're doing Indy Tahoe and co. And I thought it was funny in this game that Gaunt's come back in. And I think it was it must have been in the first quarter because I thought it was early on. I was like, well, fucking Ebony O'Day's nominated already. So it doesn't really matter who, like, it's just situational sometimes, like where the ball is.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's there, who's on the field. Ebony O'Day is she's going to compete 110% regardless of if she's any chance at winning the hit out. So she probably at least put her body in and made it a tougher situation. But
yeah, representation on the ground.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch the first half again just to see if that actually happened or if I'm just fucking. I've had a dream about it because I think quietly. I mean, we can get into honourable mentions now, and Ebbs was certainly not close to being votes this week for me, but I think her back half of the year has improved. Like I think at the start of the year, I found Ebony O'Day a little bit lost. Her as we've improved and our pressure and as things have improved a bit, I think she's still probably in the bottom 8 players in the side, but she's playing her role really, really well, and she's a kind of obviously a veteran and a leader and a kind of tone setter as far as vibes go, because I think she's just one of those I love footy and I'm gonna go at it, and so she was so her taking a hit out. I just remember looking at her, yeah, that's something Ebony O'Day would do. Like she's like, oh fuck it, I'm the only one here, so yeah, I love footy, let's go. With a big beaming smile, with that great pride.
And just throws her body around at every chance.
So I've liked her, but I mean, I think you mentioned Ella Heads before. She was one of my first. She was almost in the one spot and I just went through the stats one more time. I was like, no, I've got to get Brooksby in. But she was probably, we can go back and forth. I'll just name Ella Heads as one of my first honourable mentions. I thought she was fantastic again. Took some couple of clutch marks that just, not even clutch marks, just ones that were like, you needed that person, like the mark from the first kick out, like you mentioned Saatchi taking a kick out and Heads just being, I think there was one that kind of floated to almost going out. Heads kind of just reached out and made sure she marked it rather than it going out. It would have been a kind of lasso moment, so to speak. So, yeah, Ella Heads just continues to impress me. She's been such a dynamite pickup for us. You know, she's averaging 12 disposals. She's not setting the world alight, but she's just a key cog in the machine that's growing.
Yeah, I think the thing with Ella Heads for me is just her willingness to take on the game, and like in particular in this match, there was a lot of opportunities either from a set piece as such, where she took a mark, say on the half forward flank. There was that one example that led to, I think it was the Caitlin Pope goal. But even in the defensive half, getting involved and just trying to burst away from the contest or take the game on. It shows a level of maturity that I think she's injected into the side, and that I think will hold us in good stead. I think it was before I went on leave, or one of the shows earlier in the season mentioned that she's already become more or less a leader of our football club. Within her first year, she's been a great pickup for mine. So if I bring up the rest of my honorable mention, just Jasmine Sowden, like she had the ponytail going, which automatically made her look more imposing somehow, for mine. But then to go along with that, she had a team high 10 tackles, which I thought was awesome. You know, she's from a scoring output and link up and disposals, she's not dominating any game as such, but there's little signs that goes to show that there's something there. But yeah, I switched on the game and I saw this young lady, black hair and the ponytail swaying around, just had a bit of I don't know, she had a bit of silent swagger about her, I guess you could say, and I was just like, all right, yeah, we can go with that.
She was running.
I didn't realize that she had the 10 tackles. Yeah.
And she was like to harken back to a random analogy from the men's season, when I had talked about another team acting like velociraptors. She was a raptor on the night. She, like, a couple of those tackles where she just fucking hammered her opponent, got the crowd, like the very good crowd of 3,039, I think, was our best crowd of the year for a game that was, you know, a game that could have been the death knell of the season. I think it was really good. So shout out to the Port Adelaide crowd that were down there. It was a really good, really good atmosphere. But yeah, a couple of those Sowden tackles were just such hammering tackles from such a young player as well. You know, it's great to see a lifelong Port Adelaide fan getting out there and just fucking ripping heads off, so to speak, because she was tenacious and yeah, kind of set the, you know, you need those players that if they're not doing the things like the Stars are doing, if they're doing that, like we had 76 tackles for the night and she had 10 of them, like it's a fairly good number for one person, particularly such a raw player and a rookie to kind of like to go out there and play like that is really, really good. So yeah, good shout by you. By the way, Ella Heads is 22 years old. Like you're talking, I was just like, when you're like, oh, she's a leader, I'm like, yeah, I think she's still relatively young. She's 20. I thought she was like 24 maybe, but yeah, she's so young. So definitely she's a player that's developing still as well. Yeah, but good shout by you with Soudan. I think you were getting to someone else though, and just kind of interjected with that one. But yeah.
Oh, I mean, it could go off the back of Soudan in regards to like pressure on the opposition. Maria Maloney has played very much a supporting act the whole year, whereas last year she was heavily involved in our midfield rotation, more so in the guts of the midfield. But it's worth noting that out of her 11 disposals, she had 9 contested, which was equal third. And she also had 8 tackles, which was equal second on the for the game from a Port Adelaide perspective. So, really great. I don't even know if you could even class it as a cameo. I guess you can from a possession point of view. Just a cameo performance from Maria, doing the things that we've come to love about her from a minimal disposal game. Like I said, equal third in contested possession and equal second in tackles was worth a shout.
Yeah. No, she was. I was looking at her and it was just like she wasn't going to get into the votes, but she was in the kind of honourable areas as well because she's just. Yeah, she had a great. I mean, her 50th, which was the last home game, was she had a great game in that. Again, like not high in the just the. But you need the player like your Maloney's and your Soudens who are getting out there and not maybe having a ton of disposals, but they're getting out there and laying a lot of our total team tackles. Another one being Sinead Goody had a quite lower game as far as disposals go, but she was laying tackles and quite strong. And I was actually surprised to see that Sinead only had nine disposals because she felt more present, and it might be just from the tackles. Like Sinead was the equal second you were talking about with the tackles. She had 8 as well. So you've got 26 tackles between Maloney, Souden, and Goody, who didn't have a whole lot of the ball, but they were they set the tone for all those other players to have the games they did, and they all supplemented their games with a few tackles as well and helped that pressure game. But you need those kind of players to supplement the accumulators of the side, as I tie my tongue up, need those players to do that kind of stuff to help them out.
Let the cobblers cobble kind of gear. It has a flow-on effect like that Bulldogs game. The pressure that everyone collectively put on allowed those upper echelon players to take the game away from the Bulldogs. And again, in this regard as well, versus Hawthorn, our supporting acts came to play by way of pressure on the contest, and it had a flow-on effect, allowing our accumulators to do their thing.
Yeah, I think we didn't talk too much about the defenders, so probably a couple more for me would be the likes of Saatchi Simon, Emily Borg, who Emily was under pressure from a very talented Hawthorn backline with the way we were playing and controlling the game, also under pressure because when the ball did get out the back, it was often Emily against one, if not two, and trying to kind of, and, she got a bit unlucky with one, like a free kick paid against her for I don't know if it was deliberate or just deliberate.
It was deliberate. Sorry, I forgot to bring that up. I think, and that started their third quarter goal rush. I think that's I think that call was bullshit, to be honest. It was a deflection at most.
Yeah. Well,
Good goal, Anya.
McDonough.
Anya. But it was bullshit how she got to have the opportunity at goal, for sure.
Yeah.
Borg has been unlucky from an umpiring perspective this year.
Geelong one still gives me nightmares. Like, I'm in the middle of spooky season and watching a lot of horror movies, and Nightmare on Elm Street being one of my all-time favourites. I've watched both the original and a couple of the sequels of diminishing returns, but I still have a soft spot for them because if Freddy's doing shit, I'm there for it. And my Freddy Krueger nightmare is the deliberate against Geelong, because that just it repeatedly plays in my mind as I think about we've been our own worst enemy ultimately at times this year. But I think Emily's been unlucky because she's an incredible defender and still so young, but she's with the way we're playing, it's often that's what's leading to so I think she played a tough role very, very well, and Saatchi's continued to. Saatchi didn't have quite the intercepts that's why Brooksby I got up there because she had by far the intercepts, but Saatchi had 15 disposals at 80%, whereas earlier in the year she was getting intercepts, but sometimes she was at 20, 30% at times. she was a lot better with a disposal with 15 touches this week. I thought it was really, really good from Saatchi. And then Emily, while she didn't have disposal efficiency, it was often because she was, gathering the ball. She had that one where she gathered in a moment where if it got over the back, I think it's a Hawthorn opportunity. Emily's kick did go out in the full, but she basically stopped a goal scoring opportunity and kicked for touch. You're essentially it's still
we could still set up.
Yeah, but it's one of those. I think Hawthorn definitely get a shot at goal if she doesn't do what she did. She should have maybe hooked it around a little bit more, but it was a really, really good gather, really good skill to gather the ball and turn around and run, and then she kicks it out in the full. So objectively, it's a negative disposal, but what she did there was save a goal scoring opportunity. So she did, and those kind of things are what I'm looking at more with her game, and I was really impressed with that. So yeah, shout out to the defense. A lot of them. But yeah, particularly just Emily and Saatchi continuing to impress for two players that are still quite young and growing, but they're playing at a high level.
Completely agree.
Yeah, could shout out the entire team, to be honest. But is there anyone in particular you wanted to note, or?
No, I think we've just about covered it there.
Yeah,
great effort by the group as a whole.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah. As we said. We're really, really impressed with that result, and they all deserve a good pat on the back for it, and but not too much time for them to rest on their laurels, because we go bouncing back into a very, very tough game this week, but one that if you look at that result, you can take plenty of quiet confidence we're still the underdogs, but we have our showdown this week, Friday Night Footy at Norwood Oval. So, never have I met what's the line from Star Wars? Never have you seen a more wretched hive of scum and villainy than Norwood Oval. Mos Eisley, Norwood Oval, same. But yes, we play the Adelaide Crows at Norwood Oval on Friday night, 7:05 p.m. Alberton Standard Time. We are the underdogs based on the betting odds. It's $1.48 to the Crows, $2.59 to Port. Certainly, we've obviously seen we haven't won one of these yet, but the results over the last few years have gone from being very, very one-sided in the first one to a very, very close game last year that we lost by 14 points in the end. Before we quickly touch on just how the injury lists are looking and wrap this one up, how are you feeling about this one 4 days out from the showdown? I don't think we could ask for it to be in better form, at least. In the 2025 iteration of this side, but we do have a few players that would be nice to have around, but at the same time, the players we do have did the job last week. So
that's exactly right. I feel a lot better about it today than I did this time last week.
Yeah.
And coming into this season, we've noted the linear progression of the side, but also that has found itself mirrored in the showdown performances. Obviously, margin of 60 the first showdown, 30 the next, and 14 last year to kick off the season. So that form line would suggest that this year is the year, which I agree with, and for various reasons, I think that's accurate. But obviously, before the Hawthorn game, cause for concern. But in actual fact now, I think it's completely flipped. There was I saw a lot of Adelaide Crows fans really disappointed after their loss to North Melbourne, kind of getting the knives out for their coach as well. And just a bit of lament over their season. Funnily enough, they're in the 8 as it is. Obviously, they have high expectations based on their performance in a competition of 6 teams or whatever it was back in the day. So
good side swap there.
Yeah, but you can only go off. I guess one thing we haven't done is string wins together. We have had good wins, but they've been in isolation. So I guess that may go against us. But all we have to go off of is their last performances, and we performed handsomely well, for want of a better term, of course. And Adelaide lowered their colours. So we have a great shot. We just need to make sure we're ticking all the boxes, or most of them, like we did on Friday night just gone.
Absolutely, yeah. It's keying in on those all those areas, which I'll certainly discuss when it comes to the squad show on Thursday night, which will be a short turnaround to the Friday game. But yeah, we'll review it, preview it more in depth there. A quick note on the injury list, and it's a really interesting one for Port Adelaide this week. Actually, we see the report that, and I was wondering if I was being a bit too conspiratorial when I talked about the Lauren Young being managed on the squad show, and lo and behold, she's out for the season now with a minor knee procedure just to clean. So not too much worry for Lauren Young for the future, but she's out for the year, which is unfortunate because it was a real nice little cameo for the season that she gave us a few of those weeks to see just a glimpse of the talent that she's going to bring to the side in the future. Yeah, it was just interesting that she was managed last week and then she's out for the year now. So, yeah, I feel vindicated in being a little bit curious. Some of my curiosity behind how that was named last week, but yeah,
hopefully that holds you in good stead for the year next year. Obviously, that's obviously why they've made that decision.
Yeah,
because the signs were good. Signs were good.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's just a little bit of with knee surgery,
arthroscope, something like that. Hopefully,
I'd imagine that's the case. So I think they listed it as a minor procedure, relatively minor, but obviously it's enough that she's not going to be able to come back and play at any point this year. Piper Window is gone from last week being TBC to, which I said at that point, I was like, if she's had stitches and some structural damage to the cheek, then there's no way she could be back this year, and she is out for the year now. Kirsty Lamb still out for a couple of 1 to 2 weeks with that calf complaint that kind of popped up in training post Bulldogs game. Interestingly, Julia Teakle's gone from TBC to 1 to 2 weeks, so she's back kind of with a timeline for return if there's any chance of that. So I guess they're saying she could be back next for our last game of the season against GWS, possibly, or an unlikely finals appearance. So. Yeah, there was a few changes to the injury list this week in both players that have been on there, but changing their timelines. And unfortunately, the likes of Window expected, Lauren Young. I guess I was surprised, but also not surprised based on the fact she was managed last week. So yeah, but saying all that, none of these players played last week in that game against Hawthorn. So the players that we have, right. none of them have been added to the injury list. So that team will probably go in relatively unchanged, I assume. Although I guess it's just matchup based. Adelaide have got a few players in Chelsea Randall's a TBC based on her concussion, Amy Boyle-Carr's test with concussion, and Caitlin Gould, who I think they thought was going to be out for a bit longer with her wrist, but she's been out for the last. So they've potentially got some strong players to come back into their side and help them, which they'll be really, really happy if they can get at least 1 or 2 of those back. But so they could be strengthened compared to the position they were last week against the Kangaroos. But regardless of who they can put out on the field, we have to go in with reasonable confidence with that side that we played last week. Norwood Oval does provide its unique challenges with its the kind of that narrow side boundary and all that. But,
shape,
yeah, fucking shithole. But yeah, we have to just go in there with the confidence that we took out of the game against Hawthorn and just put our best foot forward. I'm not going to be I mean, I want to win showdowns, but I do understand the way the kind of genesis of this competition has come, and we've come in with a fair way back, and we're just trying to close that gap. So yeah, I'll look at it more on Thursday, but I'm feeling okay about it. I think we can get the job done if we do what we did on Friday night. We're going to be every chance of rolling over the top of them. So I'm certainly not disrespecting the Crows and what they've done to the competition. But as you said, a lot of that success came before we were in the competition anyway. So yeah, and they've certainly dropped away from the top echelon that they were a couple of years ago, and we're playing better than we ever have. So
yeah, I agree. I think they're in a gettable position, and like I said before, if we tick most of the boxes that we need to, I think we'll give it a good nudge.
Yeah.
And I mean, a performance like against Hawthorn, I don't think is out of the realms of possibility. I'm not expecting it, but it just goes to show what can happen if you're ticking a lot of those boxes the way that we want to play. And I'm not going to be able to join you on Thursday for the preview. So I just want to say, fuck Sarah Goodwin and fuck Hannah Ewings. It's a bit of a low blow. Hannah Ewings, I actually forgot she existed, and then saw her name pop up earlier this season. And I just like, oh yeah, That's right.
Yeah.
But fuck you for jumping ship.
I don't think much of the competition has thought about Hannah Ewings much since she won the Rising Star and did a lot of things in that first year. And then
Didn't she? Yeah. Wow.
yeah, I've got a
Oh,
couple of Hannah Ewings cards here that I'm kind of like, I just don't know what to do with them at the moment.
yeah. And
Um,
young India Rashid will happily accept bringing her home to Port Adelaide in years to come, but unfortunately, we have to play against her in the meantime.
yeah, we'll bring the Port fans home to the enlightened western suburbs in future years. But hoping we can go. The only thing I wish is that this, the way the schedules, because we only playing one showdown a year, it's back and forth. This year, with the way the team's playing, I wish it had shaken out that we were playing at Alberton, because that's the one thing that might go against us, because as you said, we do play Alberton pretty well. We have lost a couple there this year, but they're both games that we were in and dominated patches of. So we've had a reasonable good time at Alberton this year. So I wish that just the way it has shaken out over the last couple of years at this one, with the way the teams are relatively playing, that we were at Alberton. But you can't change that. So let's see if we can be a very, very memorable win to get it done at their home, their transient home. Yeah, their trailer park home for the time being. Got on a lot of swipes in Adam in a short period of time here. I've very much enjoyed that. But
it's showdown week.
It absolutely is, and they fucking
got the crow.
Yeah, fuck them. Can't crom. Anyway, we should wrap this one up, and I'm really, really excited that you're back on the pod. I know you won't be around on Thursday, but look forward to previewing it with everyone else on Thursday, and they'll be out on Friday morning for you to listen to in the lead up to the game on Friday night. If you happen to be around at Norwood, shoot me a message. I'll be around. I don't know what. Probably just float around and find out wherever the Alberton crowd and some fellow supporters of Enlightened Persuadings are hanging out. And feel free to shout out and come and join me for a drink if you're around. I'll certainly reiterate that on Thursday evening as well. But glad to have you back on the pod, Jamie. It was lovely to talk about this one with you. It was a great game to kind of dissect and look back on some of the kind of storylines of our season as well. So, shout out everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Nothing more to say. How you doing, Aaron?
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.